CBC's Sarah Leavitt is in Lacolle at the border crossing there with New York State. We heard from the Premier earlier in the show, but he continues to speak this hour, and we're learning more about Quebec's response. What can you tell us?
Well, Premier François Legault really going at this in two ways. The first is how Quebec, as a province, can retaliate or, as he put it in one of his sentences, punish the U.S. for these tariffs that they have put in place. And he looked at many options that the province could take, number one being following along with what other provinces have done, and that is taking American liquor off the shelves of our liquor board, the SAQ. And so Legault saying that's going to happen immediately. Another retaliation that he has put out there is punishment to American companies that bid on things here in Quebec who don't have any connection to Quebec. So whether that be a factory in Quebec or partnerships with businesses in Quebec. He called it a punishment, a monetary punishment if they do want to do business here in the province. And he said that that could go up to 25%. Now, the other the other vein that he took was how Quebec and his government are going to help businesses as they deal with these tariffs. And he announced a loan, interest-free loan program, and they're calling it frontière, so that means border, and not going into too much detail, but saying that businesses in Quebec can apply for this interest-free loan to help them deal with the issue of the tariffs. And they said that businesses could get up to $50 million in help. Here's what Legault said specifically about what he's been doing this past month. He said, over the past few weeks, I have met with several small, medium, and large businesses active in our strategic sectors to better understand their specific realities, and I'm convinced that the measures put forward will address some of their challenges.
Okay, so that's what he had to say. I want to ask you, Sarah, there you are. Speaking of the border, you're at the border. We're seeing lots of traffic there behind you. Have you spoken to people? Do you have a sense of what's happening in terms of these tariffs going into place? Are trucks being looked at and do you have any sense of what's going on there?
So what I will say, Andrew, is that it's been a pretty typical day here at Lacolle. It's quite busy, in fact, on the non-commercial side of things. Now, this is, of course, the boundary between Quebec and New York. It is Quebec's largest border crossing, about 2 million people crossing in. Commercially, there's about 300,000 commercial trucks that make their way through here. I did speak with one trucker that was on his way across the border, and I asked him specifically just for a little bit of the logistics about how this works. And he said, well, to be perfectly honest, I don't really know all of the logistics. What happens, though, he said, was they'll get to the border and they'll do their usual thing with the paperwork that he hands over that he got from his business here. Meanwhile, what happens is the invoice for that 25% gets sent to the American company who are the buyers of whatever's going over the border. So he says he's not seeing a difference. It's not any slower or anything like that because he's just doing his regular route. What we will see is how right now we have both the tariffs for the import, tariffs now for the export. Where will that extra 25% in most cases end up? Will it be in the pockets of the consumers? Will there be companies that decide they're big enough to kind of shoulder the weight of that percentage? And of course, we don't know how long these tariffs are going to be in place, so that has a big impact as well.
What the impact could be is for everything that we use on the farm, fertilizers, packagings, a lot of the cardboard or glass bottles. We make cider vinegar, so a lot of the supplies come or go through the States.
So just some context there, that was a apple farmer, and it just tells you how many people will be impacted by this. She might sell her apples in Quebec, but her supplies, a lot of them come from the States. So that just shows you the breadth of the impact of these tariffs, Andrew.
All right, Sarah, thank you. That is the CBC's Sarah Leavitt at the Quebec-New York State Crossing in L'École.